Fourth grade lesson 2.4 is estimate products. Products being multiplication answers. And estimating, again, goes back to bringing back how to round those numbers. We should be able to do those very quickly in our heads now, or are pretty close to being able to do that. So if that's the case with us, then we should find this lesson pretty easy. Let's get into it and have a look. All right, so our essential question is, how can you estimate products by rounding and determine if exact answers are reasonable? So let's unlock the problem. We're going to be talking about an elephant. An elephant can reach as high as 23 feet with its trunk. It uses its trunk to pick up objects that weigh up to 3 times as much as a 165-pound person. About how much weight can an African elephant pick up with its trunk? We read the question. Read the problem. Let's underline the question, about how much weight. And when they say about how much, we don't need to calculate the exact answer. We just need to round and come up with a reasonable answer. About how much weight can an African elephant pick up with its trunk? Let's go circle the information they gave us. It can reach as high as 23 feet with its trunk. It uses its trunk to pick up objects that weigh up to 3 times as much as a 165-pound person. Okay, now notice this. This is something always to watch out for. They asked about weight, and I went in and circled information that they gave me. Now I need to determine, is all of this information useful? Did it ask me how high the elephant can lift anything? No, it didn't, right? It asked me weight, 3 times as much as a 165-pound person. This is my weight information, and this is height information. They didn't ask me about height, so I can ignore that. So we cross out the information we will not use. So be careful of that. Sometimes they'll add information that isn't necessary. Then we circle the numbers we will use, 3 times as much as a 165-pound person. How will you use the numbers? Well, we learned in the previous lesson 3 times as much is going to be 3 times that 165-pound person. 165 plus 165 plus 165. 165 added to itself 3 times over. Here it is. But they didn't say exactly how much. They said about how much. So I'm going to round that 165. Remember this? I'm going to round it to its greatest value, the hundreds place. That 6, the neighbor, is an up number, so it goes up to 200. And then it's just doing the same thing I did in the last lesson. 3 times 2 is 6 hundreds, because we had the 2 zeros. So an African elephant can pick up about 600 pounds with its trunk. That's a lot. And this book is really good at giving us another way of doing things in case this one doesn't click with you. Here's another way. We can estimate by finding 2 numbers that are the exact answer, that the exact answer is between. So we had 3 times 165, same here as here. We can round to 165 because 165 is between 100 and 200. We can say 3 times 100 and 3 times 200. So we can take both of those, the lower version of it and the higher version of it, because that's the numbers that 165 is in between, 100 and 200. Then we could do the calculation. 3 times 100 will be 300, and 3 times 200 will be 600. So the African elephant can pick up between 300 and 600 pounds. So there's another option for you if you want to go that route. And when we reason things through, is 200 less than or greater than 165? 200 is more than that, right? So it is more, or greater than, I should say, greater than. So if that's the case, would the product of 3 and 165 be less than or greater than 600? So if we rounded up to 200, that means that our answer is not going to be quite that high as our estimate. That's a high estimate, right? So we did, if we had to round up, then we know whatever our answer is, it's going to be less than 600. 600 is the highest reasonable answer because we rounded up. So it will be less than 600 because we had forced that number to an up position, the higher version, 200. 165 is, 200 is above 165. So we round it up, so we know that that's going to be high, but that's the highest amount, reasonable amount. Let's look at another example using this skill. We're describing reasonableness. You can estimate a product to find whether an exact answer is reasonable. Tell whether an exact answer is reasonable. Ava's horse eats 86 pounds each week. Ava solved the equation below to find how much feed she needs for 4 weeks. She did 4 times 86 equals something. Ava says she needs 344 pounds of feed. Is her answer reasonable? To find out if it's reasonable, we would have done the rounding first. Well, we're going to do the rounding afterwards. She did the calculation. Let's see if it comes out reasonable, or maybe she made an error in her calculations. One way is we can estimate. The 4 is already rounded to its greatest value, 4, ones place. Let's round this 86 to its greatest value, the tens place. We look at his neighbor. That's an up number, so we're going to round that up to 90. 4 times 90. And because of the skill we learned in the previous lesson, we will do the basic fact of 4 times 9, which is 36, and then we put the 0 on the end, so 4 times 90 is 360. 344 is close to 360, so we can say her answer of 344 is reasonable. She probably calculated correctly. We can also say, look, this 86 we rounded up, so we know the answer is going to be less than 360 a little bit, and 344 is less than 360 a little bit. Another way, find 2 numbers that the exact answer will fall in between. This is where you round this one down and you round this one up, because you want a number, the rounded value that is just below 86 and just above 86. Well, the rounded number that's just below 86 is 80, and the rounded number that's just above 86 is 90. We'll do both of those. 4 times 8 is 32 with the 0 on the end, 320. 4 times 9 is 36 with the 0 on the end is 360. So the answer is between 320 and 360. Oh, we know the answer. She had calculated it. 344 is between 320 and 360, and it is, right? 344 would be in the middle there. So 344 pounds of feed is reasonable answer when she calculated it. We will look at a few more problems. You can do the pause and try it sort of thing and play when you have an answer, just to check your answers before you're expected to go on your own for Think Central. So let's have a look. They want us to estimate. Again, we're estimating, so we don't have to do the actual calculation yet. That's coming up in a few lessons, but not on this one. So we're estimating the product, the multiplication, by rounding. So we're going to have the 5 be multiplied by the rounded to the greatest value version of 2,213. Round to the greatest value. His neighbor is a stay number, so the 2 over here will stay at 2, with everything else turning to a 0, so that we can use the trick we learned in the last lesson. 5 times 2 is 10, and then you put the 3 zeros at the end of that 10 with 1, 2, 3 zeros. So the rounded, or the estimated product of 5 times 2,213 is, the answer will end up being around 10,000-ish. So we rounded down, so it might be a little higher than 10,000-ish, just as a heads up there when we do calculate it. I'll go ahead and calculate it so you can see. The actual answer to 2,213 times 5 is 11,065, a little above 10,000, so it is reasonable. So you don't have to do this part yet. That's for another lesson. Right now we're just worrying about this. Estimate the product by finding 2 numbers that the exact answer will fall in between. So 2,213 is going to be between 2,000 and 3,000. So we're going to put 2,000 here and 3,000. Those are the 2 numbers it's between. 5 times 2 is 10 with 3 zeros on the end from that. 5 times 3 is 15. with 3 zeros, 1, 2, 3. The exact answer will be between 10,000 and 15,000. And of course we know the exact answer comes out to 11,065. So it does fall between 10,000 and 15,000. So either of these two ways will give you an answer of reasonableness. And you'll find you won't have to write them down after a while. You just round that number in your head, do the calculation fast in your head, and that helps you when you're in the lessons where you're calculating things through, because if you can get to a point where you're saying, oh, okay, I know my answer is going to be right around 10,000-ish, and you end up with 23, your brain can go, no, that doesn't sound right at all. So that's why we estimate. We have 2 more practice problems we can do to make sure we're feeling confident about what we're working on. Let's have a look. So again, pause, try it, and then play to unstick yourself if you get stuck or to check your answer. Number 3, Kyra needs to make color copies of a horse show flyer. The printer can make 24 copies in 1 minute. Kyra says the printer makes 114 copies in 6 minutes. So this is what she says it does. We know it makes 24 copies in 1 minute. But she says in 6 minutes it's going to make that much. So let's find out what 24 copies in 6 minutes will be. Ish. We're not looking to calculate it out. We're not at that point in chapter 2 yet. We are just getting an estimate. We'll do it both ways. We can round this to its greatest value and call it 20 times 6. Now notice I rounded down. 24 is more than this. So this is going to be a lower number than our actual answer will be. 20 times 6 is 2 times 6 is 12, with the 0 on the end is 120. Is 114 reasonable? I don't know. I think that it should be a higher number. Let's look at the other way they showed us, where they said do between the two between. So if I rounded down, 24 is between 20 and 30, right? 20 times 6, 2 times 6 is 12 with a 0 on the end. 30 times 6, 3 times 6 is 18 with a 0 on the end. That means that whatever this answer is, 24 times 6, should be in between here. So 114 copies does not sound right. I'll get the answer just so that you know, or you can calculate it if you know how. 6 times 4 is 24. 6 times 2 is 12, 13, 14. It is actually 144 is the amount of copies in 6 minutes. Let's try another one. Jones Elementary is having a car wash to raise money for a community horse trail. Each car wash ticket costs $8. Tiara says the school will receive $1,000 if 125 tickets are sold. Is that accurate? I wonder. Let's see. Each car wash ticket is $8, and she wants to sell 125 tickets. 8 times 125. Let's do it the first way first, where we just round it to the greatest value. 8 times, this is a stay number, so the 1 stays the same. We rounded down, right? So we know that our answer is going to be lower than what the actual answer is. 8 times 100, 8 times 1 is 8, with 2 zeros is 800. So we know that this 800 is a low guess, or not a guess, I should say, a low estimate as to what it should be. It would be higher than 800 because this number is higher than 100. She says 1,000. Okay, maybe so, because that is higher than 100. Let's try the other method too, just for practice sake, where we say 125 is between the numbers 100 and 200. So I could do 8 times 100, 8 times 200, and that will give me the range that the answer will be between. It's going to be between 800, 8 times 1 is 8 with 2 zeros, and 8 times 2 is 16 with 2 zeros on the end. So it's going to be between 800 and 1,600, and 1,000 falls in between there. So that's very potentially a correct answer. I can calculate it. some of you might be able to calculate that in your brains too. 8 times 5 is 40. 8 times 2 is 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 8 times 1 is 8, 9, 10 with the carryover. And yes, she did do her math right. It is 1,000. Our estimate did say it fell in between. Again, a reminder, this part you don't have to do yet. I was just giving you a preview of multiplying with multiple digit numbers here. All we need to be able to do on this lesson is find out if our answer was reasonable. It was for her. It was not for Kyra. She had estimated 114, which is over here. So that's all this lesson is about. Is it a reasonable answer when you estimate? So if that makes sense to you, you can go ahead and go on to Think Central and do the problems on there on your own. If you need me to explain this more or better, then we will work on that in our small group when we meet next.